What do creative people living in the Florida Keys like us, who have full-time jobs in order to pay bills, what do you do in your free time to exercise and use your creative brain and feed your creative soul? That's the question, and this podcast will provide answers. My name is Nancy Truesdale. Welcome to Creatives in the Keys. I'm always excited when I meet somebody who is in a line of work that I think of as being a creative field, because I think it's hard. It's hard to earn a living in the creative fields.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, Karrie, I'm excited to talk to you because it seems like you have figured out a way to do it. Tell me a little bit about what you do and how you do it.
Sure. So my name's Karrie Porter Bond. Professionally, I'm Karrie Porter Photography, and I've been a photographer professionally for about 18 years now. I started fresh out of high school. I didn't initially think I was going to be a professional photographer. I actually just did it for fun and as kind of a side job. I worked with a local kind of studio, your typical traditional portrait studio, and he did a little bit of weddings. And that's kind of where I got into it professionally. Probably 2 to 3 years after that, I branched out on my own. I had been in college for a few years at that point, and that was when I decided, this is going to be my career path. I sort of made a concerted decision. Instead of going for pharmacy school, I had been accepted to Nova's doctorate of pharmacy at that point, and I told my parents, sorry, I'm going to change. And so I decided to get a degree in photography and art and continued working professionally throughout. And here I am 18 years later and run a full-time studio and work professionally. This is my full-time gig.
Wow. So where is your studio? Where do you run the whole operation from?
Yeah. So I'm actually in my studio right now. I'm at 201 Front Street in downtown Key West. And I think you can fact check me on this. I'm either one of the only or the only studio-based photographers in Key West. Most of us that are kind of my colleagues, most of us shoot outside, and I do too. But I really wanted a space where I could run it as a full-on business, do corporate headshots, corporate groups. I was very lucky early on to make some great relationships with companies like Keys Federal Credit Union. They've been really supportive, and they send their board of directors headshots to me. I got to do some work with Wells Fargo, a couple of insurance companies, some local, some not. I actually did a really big group, a company called NLC that was in town for a conference, and I did 43 headshots in just a couple of hours. So I really wanted to run it as a business, not just a creative space, which it is. But so I'm downtown. I'm right in between the Truman White House and Margaritaville Resort, and I'm right here by the water, and the cruise ships come in. So it's really convenient for people.
Very centrally located, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just beautiful. I just walk outside and sit by the fountain, and it's just really nice area to be in.
You've been doing weddings for over 18 years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, over 18 years.
Something tells me, though, that there are other parts of photography that feed your creative soul.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So
I think, it's like any job that you have, kind of your day-to-day activity, you sort of systematize and you, get it to a point where you can do it efficiently and churn it out quickly. And in any situation, rain, broken camera, bride falling down, anything that happens.
Right.
You only really get to that point. And I feel like you can only really run a creative business successfully if you can systematize part of the process. But with systems comes repetition, and with repetition comes boredom. I really love, in the last few years, I sort of stumbled upon this genre of women's photography, kind of modern glamour. Initially, it was sort of there's an international women's photographer named Sue Bryce who just kind of has this whole platform. And I started following her work and was really inspired and just did a photo shoot with my mom one day. We were on vacation and she had some battles with cancer. And, so I was trying to get her confidence up and just have a fun photo shoot day with her. And that kind of sparked this other offshoot of my work that I think I even told you before. It's like, if nobody paid me to do it, I would do it anyway. It's
So
just,
awesome.
I love it so much. And so I would say that's kind of my creative outlet. I call it a play date. Like, let's have a play date in the studio. And I have a rack full of, dresses and outfits. And we just do different lighting and kind of just play and have fun. And there's no pressure. And you always get good stuff, but that pressure is off a little bit than like when it is with the wedding. So I just really, really enjoy that sort of creative outlet.
Gotcha. If somebody was looking for more than just a wedding photographer, let's say family reunions or milestone events, birthdays or retirement or what have you, do you do things like that?
Yeah, I do all kinds of events. I do vow renewals a lot. People come down to the Keys and maybe aren't getting married, but they're renewing their vows. I do a lot of like family. I wouldn't really call it family. I guess you would call it a family reunion. Basically, they're all in town,
Sure.
and they've got their whole family. So they're celebrating all together, or it might be the grandparents' 60th anniversary or something like that. So there's all those little milestones. And yeah, I definitely am not particular about what type of event it is. I've done a few quinceañeras
Sure.
and bat mitzvah. I did a bat mitzvah, my first bat mitzvah just this year with a local client, and it was just so much fun. So yeah, I love doing all sorts of events that are in that genre.
Do you have a team that comes with you, and do you have assistants and so forth?
Yeah. So my husband, Rob, actually has been shooting with me for about 15 or 16 years now. He's usually there kind of as, helping me with equipment and lighting and things like that. He also will second shoot if the wedding is big enough or the event needs it, or let's say it's a big family group and, I just need another set of hands.
Yeah.
And then I also work with another local assistant, Kaylee, and she's awesome. She works for HTA during the week, but she also helps me on the weekends. So yeah, if I'm at the shoot, I always generally have someone with me, unless it's just like the couple. If it's just one or two people, I can kind of manage that by myself, but I like to have an extra person.
Sure. Since you've been in this career for so long, I know that there's going to be something that keeps you in it because you obviously have a college degree. You can do other things. What has kept you in photography?
Good question. What has kept me in photography? One of the things when people ask me why I enjoy this, one of the things is I love that sort of rush, I guess you would call it, that, any artist kind of always wants that support for their work. They want to know that people are appreciating what they're doing with photography, and especially with client-based photography, because let's be clear, there are many, many genres of photographers out there. And I sort of love that first bit of feedback that comes when they get their images, and especially when I can see it in person, if I can get them in the studio to see their images for the first time, that to me just like seals the deal. I kind of feed on that. I really love that. I make the joke. I'm a big Lady Gaga fan, and I love that. I love that song. I live for the applause.
Sure.
So anytime I get a really awesome email or somebody, says, "Oh, I love this image," or "I love these photos," or "It reminded me of this," I'm just like, "Yay, pat!" So I don't know. That's one of the things I really enjoy. So I think I would have to say that if that part of the job went away, that sort of feedback loop where I'm getting input on, and positive input on what people are seeing, then I definitely would not want to continue in this career, because I just love that part. The other thing, and I think this could apply to any sort of solopreneur, entrepreneur, but I just really love the freedom that my line of work gives me. I can be at the studio if I want to. I can be at home if I want to. I can work from my couch. I can work from my desk. And I don't know why that comes top of mind, but for me, that's a huge thing. Having worked at your typical 9-to-5 jobs and having to get up and be at a specific location at the specific time every single day, to me I did it, but I didn't enjoy that. And especially when I did some work in kind of digital media, it was like, do I really have to be at this desk like right here? Can I go sit at the beach and do this work? So that is a huge factor for me. If I ever had to go back and get kind of a daily grind 9-to-5 job, I don't think I would enjoy that. So those are the two things that sort of pop into mind. I just really love that element of, making people happy with, the memories and then just the freedom of the work.
As a creative, I would think being in control of your schedule and what jobs you take and the parameters you set. There's got to be a lot of joy in having that creative control.
Yeah. It's also a double-edged sword though,
Okay.
because and they make that joke like, oh, I'm going into business, to make my own hours. It's like, choose any 100 hours a week you want. um, and that's definitely the case. I definitely plan my life, my family activities, my obligations to friends around my business because, like I said, it's my full-time thing. This isn't something I do on the side. And so in a way, yes, I can be somewhat pick and choose what I do. But at the same time, because it is a running business, I definitely, maybe for better or for worse, I'm not sure, but I don't take, for example, just to give you an example, my husband's cousin is getting married in February. It's like one of those save the date kind of things. And I'm like,
Sure.
I can't obligate to that because that's like just on the fringe of wedding season here. And if I get a call for a $6,000 booking, I'm going to take it.
Yes.
And, some people might discredit that or say, you should always put your family first. But to me, that is putting my family first because that is mortgage paid, groceries paid. Yes, there's creative freedom and yes, there is that choice. And if I really don't click with somebody, I will say, thanks so much for the opportunity. I don't know if we're really the right fit. I think you might be better off with one of my colleagues. And, it's not for, anything they've done wrong. It's just like, there's just not that click. So I really enjoy that part. Whereas if you work a traditional 9 to 5, it's like, here's your assignment, do it.
Sure. How far, what is your range? Like, will you go all the way up to Key Largo? Like, what is your range for your assignments?
I try to stick within the Florida Keys if I can. I sometimes will get residual referrals from, because I used to live in the Tampa area here in Florida. Right. And I also lived in Nashville for about 5 years. So sometimes I'll get, there were friends of clients from years ago who might call. And sometimes I will get clients who maybe come and get engaged here in Key West and then they're getting married elsewhere. And we've really kind of built the connection. And then they will say, oh, we'd love to have you, come up to Amelia Island. Or, I've had clients have me go to East Tennessee and things like that. But if I can stay close to home, I like to. It's just, for me, it's kind of like the amount that I would have to charge somebody to make a 3-day trip worth it for me to not be available those billable dates. It's a lot. So, but
you do it.
But for the right person,
Sure.
when it's a couple I really click with, then it's no big, I love it. Then it's like, yeah, heck yeah, I want to go to Amelia Island.
The vast majority of your work is here in the Keys.
Most of it, yeah.
And you do range all the way up to Key Largo then?
Yep. I actually have a wedding in a couple weeks at Playa Largo.
Wow.
I was just at Postcard Inn a couple weeks ago up in Alamorada. So yeah, and so it's the Florida Keys, I would say, is kind of my general domain with Key West being the main focus.
Super. What do people need to know about you? Like, what is your style? Do you have sort of a signature or imprint that is distinct for you?
Yeah, I would say if I had to describe my style, it's definitely on the very, a little bit more vibrant, colorful.
Sure.
I like to use a lot of backlighting. So I love to get sort of that glow of the sunlight coming from behind. I don't use a lot of on-camera flash. So, for those who, it's a little bit more technical, but essentially like when you have a flash basically facing your subject, it's a little bit more flat and it can be useful in certain things. But for the most part, I try to shoot with off-camera flash to make it a little bit more, give the images more shape and kind of more, I don't know, just a different, more artistic look, I guess you would say. So yeah, colorful, vibrant, energetic. I definitely am not the stand here awkwardly and smile photographer. I like to
not your grandmother's photographer.
What's that?
Not your grandmother's photographer.
Yes, not your grandmother's photographer. Yeah. So yeah, while I do infuse like an element of portraiture, I do think images should be somewhat posed. Clients are not professional models and they do need direction. I've worked with some photographers who just give absolutely no input and that's kind of their thing. For me, I don't like that. I like to let someone know when their arm is maybe not quite looking so flattering or they could shift their weight to the other foot and just look a little 3 pounds skinnier. They'll always appreciate for that. Absolutely. So I do like to do a minimal amount of posing and direction, but in terms of aesthetic, it would be just that punchy, bright, vibrant, colorful kind of style.
Cool. Now, let's talk about what it's like to be a creative in the Keys, because you've shared with us that you've done this profession in other places. What does the element of the Keys bring to your job? And is it harder? Is it easier? Curious what your take is on that.
Yeah, that's a great question because, this is the third market that I've worked in professionally. And I would say the things that are easier about it that I enjoy, sort of the community aspect of it. This is the only place I've ever worked where my competitors are some of my best friends. There's like really that element of everyone kind of helping each other, supporting one another. If you run into an issue, I had a situation a couple years ago. My sort of core lens that I use for the majority of the reception just fell off the table and smashed onto the floor.
Not funny then, funny now.
Yeah. I'm like, no. And I called my friend Mary. Within probably 20 minutes, I had a replacement that she brought over for me.
Way to go, Mary.
Yay, Mary. Yeah, I always appreciated that. That's one thing I really love. It's especially when you're new to a city and you sort of have that feeling of camaraderie. It's really great. I've been here almost 10 years. Next year will be 10 years. So I'm still relatively new, if that's doesn't sound
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, how could you be here for 10 years and still be new?
Yeah, welcome to the Keys, guys.
So I really like that aspect of it. And it's such a beautiful place to shoot. So, you can't go wrong. It's like, it almost makes the job too easy. You kind of feel like you're cheating because you just always have beautiful skies and backgrounds, and there's never a shortage of cool places to shoot. I would say one of the challenges is you really do lose that personal kind of one-on-one connection with clients that you can have in a more localized market. In a local market, your marketing is basically built on word of mouth. After you've been in business for 20 years, you have to advertise very little. Your marketing is essentially like taking great care of your clients, and they tell other clients, and those clients come to you, and it just expands on from there. In a destination market, it's completely different.
Yes.
You are reselling yourself every single day. So every day I wake up, my feet hit the ground, I am reintroducing myself to a whole new host of potential clients, as are all the photographers in the Keys. While you do get some referral business, there might be a bridesmaid who loved the venue and wants to come back to Key West and get married. That happens very occasionally. And of course, your local clientele you're doing your family portraits, and then the kids are, now in high school and you're going to do their high school senior stuff like that. You do get some of that too. But for the bulk of the event work, for the bulk of, anything that's like an outside client, that makes it a challenge because you have to, like I said, constantly reinvent yourself. And so pro and con there.
Yes. Compared to your other locales, where does the Keys rate for you?
Amazing. I love it here. I worked in the Nashville market a little bit. I was also teaching at the time. So I was shooting, but I was also shooting with students, and I was trying to kind of break into the creative scene there, but I was really busy also working. So I definitely felt welcome there, but I just felt like it was a little bit more, it was tougher to kind of get a foothold and kind of be noticed. I was also younger at the time and relatively newer to the industry. So that probably had a factor too. And then in sort of the Brandon, Tampa area, I was brand new. So I was kind of in that market. I was doing a little bit of everything. I was photographing horse shows. I was photographing sporting events. I was working with a sports team photographer who, would like boss around football players and get them into team photos.
Yeah.
And then I was doing portraits and weddings. I was kind of doing a little bit of everything. And so I hadn't really kind of found my voice yet at that stage. And then in Nashville, I was kind of learning the see and be seen and networking and, finding that whole foot. And then once I got to the Keys, it continued. And I feel like here is really where I have thrived and built my business. It's grown significantly.
Would you tell a fellow creative who was considering relocating to the Keys that whether it's in photography or painting or, sculpture or ceramics, what have you, would you recommend this as a place to come and, stretch their creative muscles?
Yes, definitely. I would say that the Keys are one of the most creative places you can live and work. It's just one of those places where people are really open and accepting of all kinds of mediums, and people just love quirky and fun and different. And even if they don't necessarily agree with your stance on something, they'll appreciate your perspective on it, and that comes across creatively in conversation, whether you're a political ally, you're in a political realm, or you're in just conversation over a dinner table, or you're working in a creative thing. It's like that. It permeates the culture in all ways.
I'd have to agree. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're somebody who is creative and you're just trying to find your people might be here. My people were here.
Well, because you're listening right now, you guys can't see what I'm seeing, but behind Karrie is this lovely portrait of a bride. Is that you?
No, here, I'll grab it. So this image, I took this at Casa Mirada in Isla Mirada, as a resort up there. I did this. This is a bride. It's hard to move it.
No, it's lovely.
Yeah. And so the picture is of a bride with her bridesmaids kind of holding her veil out, and there is some window light kind of streaming in behind her, and she's just sitting there very melancholy and kind of just taking deep breaths. I remember she was taking deep breaths, and this is right before she's going to walk down the aisle. And she just looked so gorgeous. Her name is Nancy. And I did this wedding with Julia Timmons from Blue Water Weddings. And it was just an amazing day. And she was just looked so gorgeous. And then I saw that backlight. So I'd mentioned that earlier, coming through the window. And the girls are kind of holding the veil out. And it's interesting, in the corner, I don't know if you see this, there's a little girl. Where's she at? So there's a little girl kind of standing.
Oh, yeah, like a flower girl.
Yeah, like a flower girl. And I didn't honestly even notice it when I took the picture. And it wasn't until later that I was I was editing. And
she's precious, by the way. You've caught her face and a really natural sort of reflective ingenue type of wistful look that is really precious.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite pictures that I've ever done. And especially one of the favorites from that wedding. And
people need to know that the bride is actually standing with her back to the camera.
Yes.
So it's the silhouette of the bride in a mermaid style gown, and the light streaming through the veil. And then beyond the bride is bright, beautiful setting of where she's going to be married. Are we looking at the actual...
Yeah, so it's a little bit lighter in the background, so you can't quite see the ceremony area, but it's sort of implied because you know that she's about to kind of go out and get married.
I'm going to ask Karrie to, if she will, email me some images so that we can post them alongside this link to this podcast, so you can see some of her beautiful work, and it does completely reflect the style that she just described to us, and. It's lovely. It really, really is. Well, if I were the bride, Nancy, I would be very pleased.
Thank you.
Karrie, I think one thing that all creatives want to know is it difficult to earn a living as a photographer in the Keys?
Ooh, yeah, that's the $1 million question, right? So is it difficult to run a creative business? I would say kind of yes and no. It's difficult in the sense that anything you don't know how to do is difficult. Walking is difficult. Driving a car, playing a piano, all of those things are difficult until you learn how to do it. I think the problem that creatives run into is we want to have our hands dirty. We want to be making something. We want to be trying new techniques. We want to play with the latest gadget and gizmo and, the next shiny thing. And we aren't so excited about maybe crunching the numbers and doing spreadsheets and worrying about our taxes and, all of those not so fun business side of things. But the thing that I think could help people to understand, and it's what really helped me, was the fact that if you are somebody who is creative enough to see a person sitting in your chair with their hair down and you can see a beautiful updo, come into place. If you are somebody who can look at a block of wood and use a chisel and a chainsaw and a sander to bring it to life in a sculpture, you have the creative wherewithal, the problem solving skills to also then run a business. It's nothing different. It's just problem solving. And for me, once I understood that, that opened up a whole possibility for me, because it kind of took away the, not really excuse, but the feeling that I had that, I'm not, quote, good at business. I'm not a good salesperson. I'm not naturally salesy. I'm not good with numbers. I would kind of label myself. And I think a lot of creatives do, because we're so used to doing what we know. And then you add on this element of, I have to be able to run a website and market myself and go to networking events and figure out my expenses for the month and stay on budget and all these other things. And that's just like a whole nother world. But it's just like the skill set that you needed to learn to do your craft in the first place. If there's something that you needed to know to build the cabinets that you want to build for your business, you wouldn't just go, oh, well, I'm not good at dovetails. Like, no, you would go to a trade show, you'd go to a conference, you would take a class, you would look on YouTube, you would try a couple different ways and fail and break things, and you would figure it out, right? And that's where, once I kind of learned that for myself, now I always want to share that with others who are creatives and kind of trying to make it as a business. It's like, no, if you can problem solve your way through a creative issue with a medium or product that's not working, and then you can get it to work, like you can also then figure out why your Facebook ad isn't getting any clicks. Like there's another photographer who's very into business, and she has this phrase like, drop and give me 20. Like anytime somebody brings her an issue, she's like, drop and give me 20. Give me 20 ways you could think around this problem. Like you're creative, you can think around this problem. And so it's sort of the same thing. Like if your website is down, well, is it the server? Is it the hosting company? Is it my files that are building the website? Do I need to fire the graphic designer? Like I'm just saying, like there's a couple of different reasons. You don't have to say, oh my gosh, running a business is so hard because my website went down. Like figure out what the problem is and then reverse engineer to get to the solution. Same thing with marketing. If you're telling yourself, oh, it's so hard to run a business, I can't get enough customers. Well, not enough customers is a result of ineffective marketing. And you might say, well, I'm just not good at marketing. Well, what part of it aren't you good at? Like just pinpoint the thing that isn't working for you. Is it a specific picture? Is it a link? Is it a page on your website? Is it your pricing? Like, is it the way you're wording something? Look at all the different variables that are going into it and then go, okay, I'm going to try to change just this one thing. Change the one thing, let it run for a week, see what happens. That doesn't work. Change another thing. Keep trying. Like you would do the exact same thing in your actual creative work. So why not do it in the aspect of running a business? So in that sense, is it difficult? Yeah, kind of, because it does take a lot of work and a lot of dedication, but it also took a lot of work and a lot of dedication and a lot of, quote, difficulty to learn how to do the creative work that you're doing in the first place. So I hope that kind of makes sense. The other thing is creatives will say like, oh, I'm just not good at sales. Like in order to be in business, you have to sell. Like that's what business is. Customer has a need. You have the solution. Money is exchanged. Like now you're in business. So that also shifted for me once I kind of understood sales as a helpful thing, not as a I'm trying to convince you of something or I'm trying to take your money from you. Instead, it shifted for me because it was like, no, you have a need and I have the solution. And my solution will help you in these 3 ways. And in exchange for that help, for that solution, or for that product that is going to make you happy, it costs this. You also just have to get really good at saying, how would you like to pay for that? It's such a simple phrase, but if you can't say those words, you'll never make it. And so I had to do that too. I mean, I'm shooting weddings that are thousands of dollars sometimes for my services. And at first, it's very scary to say that package is going to be $4,350. Like that's a lot of money. I also give a lot of value for that money. And now I understand that. And I understand that it's an equal exchange of time and effort and energy and creativity and skill and long-term, the legacy that it's going to leave for your family. That's priceless. So for me now, the understanding of that $4,350, there's no fear there because I feel the genuine sort of mutual benefit. So A, you have to put as much study into running a business as you do into your craft. B, you have to get really good at problem solving and thinking through issues just like you would in your work. And 3, you have to learn how to sell, but in the sense that you're helping solve someone's problem. And once you can get through that, running a business is no longer difficult. It's just sort of part of your daily regimen and your daily practice. So that's kind of what helped me, kind of get through it. I'm always working on it too, so I'm certainly not there. I have a business coach that I talk to every 2 weeks. I always highly recommend anybody get a business coach, get into a mastermind, get into a circle of like-minded people, bounce ideas off of your colleagues, both creative and business. And if you do that, then you can absolutely be successful running a creative business.
Thank you enough for, sharing some of your thoughts on how you do what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, this was fun. And, to anybody who is, thinking of moving to the Keys, or if you are someone in the Keys who is a creative person, definitely, reach out to your kind of fellow creative professionals because we're all a pretty open and loving and welcoming group.
Awesome. Well, again, Karrie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. This was fun.